Okay, I can see our attendees are still trickling in here, but I can get things started slowly as we wait for our audience to build up. Mine is Cliff White. I'm the executive editor of Seafood Source, and I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Mastering Chaos: How ERP Systems Can Improve Supply Chain Management in the Seafood Industry, brought to you by seafoodsource.com and Enecta. Today, I'm joined by Johannes Gudmundsson, the CEO and founder of Enecta LLC, and I wanted to welcome him. Johannes, there?
Yes, yeah, thanks for having me.
Perfect. Great. So everyone, an intro to today's webinar. Enterprise Resource Planning Systems, or ERPs, are playing an increasingly vital role in the operations of seafood businesses around the globe. In this webinar, Johannes will discuss how ERPs and Microsoft technology can help seafood businesses run faster and smarter, better business process management. We'll address how the seafood industry can and should embrace technology, and how data collection, instead of being feared, should be looked at as a golden opportunity for companies to study and improve themselves. Gudmundsson will also discuss how ERPs can play a role in revolutionizing the seafood industry's approach to sustainability through better traceability and reduction of waste. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please send them through the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen. And we'll do our best to get to them during the Q&A section at the end of the webinar, following Johannes' presentation. So be sure to stick around after the presentation for that. And without ado, I think I can hand this over to Johannes. Are you ready to go, Johannes?
I am. Thanks, Cliff.
Great.
Okay. Yeah, we basically are an ERP provider that mostly works with Microsoft. And just to kind of go into the title of this webinar, we're discussing ERP, and in particular Microsoft Business Central, which is a system from Microsoft, an ERP that we have developed for over 19 years. It used to be called NA, and some of you might be familiar with that, or the Dynamics package. However, rather than going straight into ERP discussions, to back up a bit and sort of talk about the technology, Microsoft is pushing for companies. We specialize it for the seafood industry. Basically, the whole concept of managing your business with technology has changed, or Microsoft is changing that. And we've all heard of things like, big data, blockchain, artificial intelligence, things like that, and the cloud computing actually coming in at full force right now in today's environment. So just to jump here into the next slide and talk about something called Microsoft Stack. So I'm not sure if many of you know what that is, but that's sort of the heart of this talk. It relates to ERP and relates to everything else. And if you haven't heard about the Microsoft Stack yet, definitely go dig into that subject. Microsoft Stack. Many of you might be in very different stages of business software today. Some of you might be using Excel and to manage your business. Some of you might have a ERP system that's similar to QuickBooks or something like that, like an entry-level system. Some of you guys might have a range system, which is then similar to NAV Dynamics. Some of you might even be what we call like Oracle, SAP, etc. So, what stage you're on, Microsoft will have an answer for you. And in my opinion, the answer is Business Central. And the first step to actually get to that level is that you have to understand Microsoft Cloud, what Microsoft is offering you through the cloud. And you might actually be using Microsoft Cloud today. You might be on the email. Your email might be through Office 365. Then you're already on the Microsoft Cloud. So if into the Microsoft Cloud, and this is a snapshot from that, go into the apps of Microsoft Cloud, the applications that Microsoft Cloud give you. I get a list, and it's actually 3 pages. It's a long list. And one item in this list is the ERP. This is, there are things like admin, which is for the IT director to administrate the cloud. That has to do with intranet. And of course, here it's both in the cloud or on your desktop. So you're probably using Excel today. It's of course part of Microsoft Stack with Flow. And I think this here explains the different things are going. And I'm going to get more detailed into screenshots of Business Central in particular. But at your level, understanding, Flow, for example, is an application in Microsoft Stack that allows you to connect together various elements of the stack. So, for example, if you need to send out an approval for a sales order, and you need that approval to go through Outlook to send an email to somebody that has maybe a link where you can click on and say, yes, I approve this, or no, I decline this. You might at the same time want to send a text message through Skype and allow the user also to text back yes or no rather than sending out the email. So Flow will connect all of these things together in a workflow and execute it in a serial fashion. So I think it's, and I'm sort of assuming that you guys are already using some systems to run your business today. Now when you're implementing a business process within that system, you always think about that system. If I'm in QuickBooks, how can I do this in QuickBooks? If I'm in NAV, how can I do this business process in NAV? This conceptual change is now, I have Business Central, but I am really going to use Flow to solve this problem because it works with more applications than Business Central alone. So it's an abstraction. It's you're walking back out of your ERP, out into the cloud, and using cloud applications to communicate with your ERP and maybe some other things. So it's important to understand these things because in the future, and this is a very near future, you could see applications come up like blockchain, doing traceability as part of the Microsoft Stack. And it's my mind that will go there. And already as part of Azure Stack, there is a blockchain development center, which we have already started developing on. And blockchain will definitely be a big part of traceability in everything in the world. So the blockchain comes in as an app from Microsoft. Of course, OneDrive, which I'm sure you're familiar with, storing your stuff. Outlook, everybody knows. Here to the right. Then we have Power BI. I'm kind of skipping over a few things here that are most important. Power BI, I will show you in a slide in a little bit, but that has to do with visualizations of your data. So you want to see if you're making money in a certain geography, or if certain vendors are always late, or there's always quality problems with certain vendors. Interactive data visualizations are done with Power BI, which is part of the stack. And I'm just going to go into that in a bit. There's apps, which is part of the stack. And what this is, you can create any type of mobile application you like and connect it to any of the other apps, meaning Business Central, connected to Word, Excel, Power BI, anything. So it's basically just a part of the stack, one element. Of course, SharePoint is an intranet. We have social engagement, so if you want to get insights about your Facebook presence, your LinkedIn presence, information from your websites, that through social engagement. And there's something called Staff Hub, and I actually like to talk about something called Talent as well. With Staff Hub and Talent, Microsoft Talent, you can handle all of your HR requirements, like onboarding, applicants, resume requests, and evaluations, time management, etc. going through this, you're probably imagine that this webinar would be, okay, let's go deep into maybe inventory and how to receive, how to ship, and things like that. But in essence, that's only a piece of the puzzle. If you look at the abstraction level that I'm introducing you to now, it's like, oh God, okay, I can do all of this together. All this is available to me. If you're using Microsoft Office 365 for your email today, you're already in the cloud. You're already using this. I mean, it's already there. You're not using it, but you're already there. So all you have to do is just get into the other apps and activate them, and you can start using that. We have something called Teams here, which I like to always mention. Teams is the email killer. If you're using Slack today, you really know what it's about. Basically, the idea behind Teams is that you can create a channel where you have conversations with team members about certain things. So an idea, or one thing is, let's say, if you're initiating taking a new product line on or a new type of seafood, and you would like team members to discuss about that, rather than sending emails with a lot of CCs on there, where half of the people don't even read those emails, you create a channel and chat in that channel regarding that. And you use your ERP to this channel as well, and list out the inventory. Powerful. So this is like a compelling reason to get into the Microsoft ecosphere. And I can see if I go into the first slide, the E is right here, Dynamics 365. That's Business Central, and that's what I'm going to talk about mostly after the 3 slides. It's only one app out of the whole thing you get, and it wants you to use everything. They don't want you to just use the ERP. That's just one aspect of what they offer. All right, so if I go a little bit further in here and get into the ERP, what we as partners and have done for a very long time is specialized in seafood or food in particular. And doing things in the food industry requires traceability compliance, a lot of moving parts which are really standard in an ERP system. And you probably know this if you've implemented an ERP system of any size, is you have to do customizations to it, or you have to change it around to adapt to your processes. And so we have done that. We've already created modules for the seafood industry, and they're now ready for the latest system from Microsoft, which is Business Central. By the way, right here, this is a snapshot out of the web browser, so it's running right on the cloud. This is you just basically fire up a web browser. You can run an app if you want, but it goes straight into the web browser, and it's very responsive, very quick, and you can basically log in from anywhere. So if and this here that we're looking at the moment, the login screen. So Paul is logged in. We're logged into the yellow submarine. You guys might guess the connection here is it's a little bit of a Beatles reference, but anyways. So if I click here onto the next slide, we get as part of the login screen as well. You get a dashboard of the mini trial balance. So this user actually has access to accounting. Gets a visualization of customer sales. You have Power BI, which is one of the elements that I mentioned before. It's an element of the stack. Pi is not the ERP. It actually is an application outside the ERP, but folded into the ERP into a window like this. And this is how Microsoft actually operates. It folds the apps together in various windows. And you're going to see it again in another example. One thing I like about this, though, is that I'll just leave it on this screen here, is that this is really clean. I hope you can agree with me on that. I've seen a lot of ERP interfaces throughout my time, all the way from cars-based. I've been doing this for 20 years. And this one is like one of the better ones, definitely, that I've seen. So I'm happy that Microsoft provided that. Nailed down and with some designers, for sure, not just programmers. and have this together. All right, so I'm going to talk now about a little bit of technical aspect of this. And some of you guys are going to know exactly what I'm talking about, and maybe others are not quite. So I've gone through an ERP implementation, gone through the chaos of an ERP implementation, and you successfully managed to get that deployed within your organization you're in or were in at some point. There's always the talk of upgrade. You install a system, and finally when it's installed, it might be a version that's like 3 years old that you finally get it installed. There's a version obviously out, and the cost of getting you to the latest version is astronomical, and the pain of doing that is a lot. This holds true for any mid-market ERP. Which, if you're a business now with more than 10 people, 10 users, you're probably in a mid-market ERP. Probably hard to maintain. And we do this as well. We hear you. This was a pain for us as well as a partner to implement and upgrade people. Try as easy as possible, but always a pain. So Microsoft has done, and this is unique to Microsoft right now. I'm sure other companies are going to catch up with this. They have changed the way they set up the system so that all of the modifications that are done to your system and all of the added product or added modules that you add on top of your system, they sit outside the core, which means, in layman's terms, you can upgrade without doing any changes. It's a click of a button and your system upgrades. In fact, Microsoft will upgrade your system if you tell them not to. The day on this new system, I woke up in the morning, I went to one of our test tenants, and the system had already upgraded and now had abilities to do things with artificial intelligence that I didn't know about the day before. And basically new features got installed overnight. We had customers that had modifications which contradicted the upgrade from Microsoft, and we got an email saying, you need to fix this and this, and then we can upgrade it. And very minor we had to do, and then the system upgraded. So here is a list of extensions showing you all the modifications are kept in something called extensions. So obviously you will need to modify your system, or you can modify it. You can change it any way you want. But all the things sit outside of the core and can be upgraded with minimal fix or no fixes. So this is actually a huge seller if you have gone through ERPs before and understand what I'm talking about. For us in the channel or that live in the ERP industry, this is groundbreaking, absolutely groundbreaking. So enough about that, and I'm just going to get into a screenshot of our module. So we have upgraded our modules that we have been deploying for the seafood industry. So they're now in extensions, and they basically automatically upgrade with Microsoft. And this is an example of a screen from our system, and it's just things to highlight. Well, it's pretty. So again, the user interface is really nice. You can change the way you visualize the items up here. I'm showing tiles which will show product images, but I would as a list if I didn't care how they look like or got tired of it. But we have a lot of information right underneath, and that's an enhancement that we do. And it just gives you an idea of the traceability. Everything we've done as far as modifying the system to work with seafood has to do around lots, or most of it has to do with lots. Tracking is extremely important in food. If you don't have lot tracking in a system right now, you should. If you're doing an Excel, it's obviously very difficult. I'm sure you can agree with me on that. And it's important that the lot traceability flows all the way from the beginning of the transaction purchasing through us, possibly any transfers that you might do between warehouses or within the warehouses, and out to sales and shipment out the door. Lot information is all tagged. And know as well as I do, a lot can happen to the lot. The lot you might have to break the lot, so it becomes two different lot numbers. It switch a lot number because you put it into a 3PL warehouse that labels it with a special freezer lot number. So a lot of complexities that go around the lot, and we'll address those in our modules. Also, you're trading, seafood trader, for example. We have something called costs, estimated actual costs that follow the lot, so that you can, before you see the lot, you can put an estimated duty, freight, handling, etc. And so you can sell the lot with estimated costs on top of that before you ever received and paid for those costs. So it's that we have addressed. Here's an example of the item cart. Obviously, also work with processing. So we do seafood processing. You are cutting up the fish into head, fillets, tails, guts, and stuff like that. And I'm going to kind of go through this. I have a few screens, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot on each one. Here's a list of customers, again, just showing the interface. And here's a customer card. And we have a list of sales orders. Here's a vendor. And this screen shows is for something in the system. You can just type in what you're looking for, and the system will try to match. And in the latest update that came to the system is that it intelligently tries to figure out what you're saying. So if you're saying purchase something, it will not only filter on things that start with purchase or have purchase in it, but also categorize it by reports, by documents, by IT tasks, and possibly look for related things. So it's starting to become like Google, looking for elements within the system. So have a list of purchases. Google into that, and here's an example of a purchase order being brought into the work office. We always have lot information available to list pack sizes, etc. So it's very tailored for seafood. Here in sales orders, so I can send out to multiple locations, multiple quantities. They can be by pieces, they can be by pounds. Of course, you have to specify always lots, etc. So getting really into processing, because that would extend this webinar by, but we do processing where you consume onto a product order, output, etc. We also do logistics and all the gambit. Here, this is one of the screens that's kind of interesting, and just to highlight the supply and demand. So to manage everything through, you of course do sales orders for shipments out, purchase orders for receiving in, and most systems, or actually not most systems, but a lot of systems just do that. You might have a very fancy system, but today you're technically only doing receiving of purchase orders, shipment of sales orders, but you're not really managing your inventory levels well. So Microsoft Central has a really strong supply and demand element to it, and I think it's really highlighted in this availability by event screen right here. So I'm just going to get to that. Here you see all of the things that are happening to a certain product, and it's triggered by each day. So here we have a purchase order for 30 coming in on Tuesday. On Sunday I have a sales order for 2 going out. On the Sunday that I another purchase order for 5 coming in, and then sales orders out, etc. So it's in and out, and it's keeping a projected balance of what I have of this item. So the system check of current inventory, all the purchase orders coming in, all the sales orders going out, and make sure that you're in balance by location. And then it will tell you, hey, you have sales orders for things you haven't bought yet, or you thought you had a purchase order for it, but it got canceled, or it got moved out. They're delayed. It's not going to meet your sales order. Your sales order needs to be either moved out, or you need to sit from somewhere else. So these type of answers the system can tell you and let you know right away. We're actually in the ERP world. We're moving more to this exception where the system is basically telling you if anything wrong, and so you won't really have to be thinking of anything else except the exceptions of your business. So you hammer sales orders, you push purchase orders for those sales orders, or you buy on spec and sales orders out, and the system might be going like, hey, you have a purchase order that you bought on spec. It's expiring. It's product expiring within a week. Go ahead, orders for it, because otherwise you're going to have to negatively adjust it. Things like that is what we're working hard on today. So just to zoom out a little bit, everybody has Outlook, or most people actually. I think when he uses Gmail or something like that from Google, but it's very, very small, at least in business. There's an Outlook example that's very, very kind of nice, which has to do with Business Central. And I'm going to run through it here just to show you the power of the stack. If I go into Outlook, actually I'm in Business Central. And this person, Business Central, who is connected to the World Wide Bank, his name is Saurabh. It's actually one of my colleagues here at Inecta. And in this system, he is a contact at the World Wide Bank. And World Bank, actually in this case, and I apologize for the naming of this, they actually buy seafood. Okay, just go with me on this one. So we have two contacts with World Wide Bank, which is Jack and Saurabh. And if I my Outlook, this is actually Paul's Outlook. Paul is a salesperson for the World Wide Bank, the Yellow Submarine. He gets an email from Saurabh, who is working for the World Wide Bank, asking for a quote for the wild salmon. This is typically World Wide Bank wants to buy wild salmon from us. So sending an email. And in Outlook, we have an icon here called Business Central, and we have a Business Central icon up here. So it's already looking at your email. All right. So I click on that icon. Business Central will take a look at the contact that it got sent from and say, so it's actually with the World Wide Bank, which is a customer of ours, and I can show you a customer information that in Business Central. So I'm right now in Outlook, but a window into Business Central. And this is that window. It's showing me the balance, if there were any sales orders, any shipments, and so statistics. So like a quick overview of the customer in my Outlook client. So if I go into this little window and I say new, I can generate a quote right away from Outlook client. And if I hit that, up a suggest line item list. So it's really email and saying, hey, I think Saurabh wants wild salmon, and we have that as an item. So here are the suggested items. It also was wondering if it got it wrong, and it might be wild American shrimp, but it's obviously not. So this is actually artificial intelligence not getting it quite right, but also right. But they get it right enough, so it's a time saver for you. And they suggest more than less. So you can just check off which one is right. It's not dooms. You just put in the quantity and say you want to add that, and add it to a sales quote with all details, and then that by email back to Sarab. And now this is attached to the email. And by the way, if you wanted to attach certain numbers because you want to shop it out of your cooler, and I'm going to show that screen at the very end of this webinar, you can do it. And that's the addition that we've done. So you not only quote him the salmon, you also quote him particular wild salmon according to a particular lot. So it could be, you could give him the expiration date, for example, or the free date when you received it into freezer. You could be very specific to that. And which seafood. So here's a quote. Actually, here's the email. So pretty powerful. It's contained within the Outlook client, but you're at the same time interacting with your ERP, and highlights the whole app concept of Microsoft. Because it's, well, you're using Outlook, but we're also using Business Central. Business Central was really folded into Outlook. And you could, same way in Business Central, and open up Outlook. And now you are using sort of Outlook type-ish functionality within Business Central. Or you can be using that flow that I explained before to create an approval workflow. That is all of these. Pieces are kind of pulled apart. And again, the blockchain, for example, will be a part of that app stack very soon, and working with Microsoft on that. Okay, another piece of the puzzle is Power BI, and this is how you would analyze your data. You would use Power BI, and the reason why that sits outside the ERP is because why would you only take data out of the ERP? You take web data in there. You could take, if you have commodity prices on certain seafood from where else in the ERP, you want to pull that into the visualization. Do that as well. So the way Power BI works is, if you have an IT proficient person on staff, you can actually install a desktop version of Power BI, and you can generate your own visualizations. And it is that easy. It doesn't require heavy development. You don't need to be a genius. You can just drag and drop visualizations, connect that to data sources, and off you go. And you can publish it on the web. You can publish that inside Business Central, anywhere you are. And just an example of that, here's one visualization for SIT. And one important fact here is that it's interactive, so I can be clicking on, if I only want to see progress fisheries, then that would filter out my cod, salmon, halibut sales only to that customer. I can be slicing certain time dates, etc. So it's interactive visualizations. And we've done a ton of these. Once we engage with customers, we actually have a support, so we can just deploy and also create your own, super easy. So it wants to have it. Another thing, Excel. Everybody knows Excel, and I apologize that we have furniture at this one. It's just an Excel example, and I'm going to kind of drive a point home. How can I use Excel to help me in Business Central, other than exporting data to Excel and doing some visualizations there? Actually use Excel to edit the data. So in this example, I just go into my item list, I hit edit in Excel, and brings up a Excel worksheet. I get all of my items in Excel, right, like this. And all I do is change anything I want about my item list, and then hit publish. In this case, add a test. Let's confirm the refresh. This item has been changed. So I get the whole stack is talking together, and in this case, we're using Excel as an editor because the ERP doesn't have this, page where you can go in and edit all the description. In the ERP, we'd have to go into the particular item, change it there, save it, and then go back out, which was some if you had to do mass changes. If you want to recategorize some inventory, all of it, and it might be 200 items, all you have to do is do a copy paste inside Excel and then publish, and you're done. So it's, I guess, super powerful to stay within the stack. And finally, we have a business accounting, and I kind of just keep the slide to just tell you, yes, we do accounting. Business Central does accounting extremely well, has state-of-the-art accounting functionality. You have a snapshot of chart of accounts, but you can use all transactions back and forth. You can do cash flow management. You do financial statements within the system, fixed asset depreciations, any cost accounting, slice dicing of budgets by any tag that you want. So it's very powerful when it comes to that. It's so powerful in the accounting part is that it's built for any type of business. We as a partner have just voted for seafood. So a lot of our competitors out there which don't have solid accounting, and it's really a bad idea. You should always start with accounting. I know accounting is sort of, to some people, boring. I guess most people would look at accounting as boring. Not me though. But if you don't have your costs right, which all to go into accounting, then all your tracking is quantities, and that's a really bad idea. At the end of the day, you might not even be making money. You think you're making money, but you're not. Your costing is off, and inventory costing is one of the most complex things that you can do. And if it doesn't have that solid, then you're in trouble. So Microsoft does. So here, for example, we have financial statements, etc. Again, it's cash flow statements. Example of that. Quickly go through something called order guide. So just to highlight modules, we do a lot of different modules. We have about 30 different modules, and they enhance the system in one way or another. And one, like plain one, is called the order guide. So of course you can create sales orders, you can type in items, etc. Some companies have the need of having a template for customers. They always buy the same thing over and over again. So you have to be able to add the items into some kind of an order guide, and then retrieve them from the order guide onto the sales order when you're quoting that customer. And we have that here. And this is a module that we developed, and it's been implemented a lot. It's very popular, and you can handle it within there. Any type of items. You could have different prices fixed or not fixed. It could be quantities fixed or not fixed. It could be locations fixed or not fixed, etc. Interesting aspect to this module. So you can see I'm retrieving it from the order guide, and here it's retrieved. This module is being enhanced because it's part of our portfolio. So there's a product development team that just keeps on improving this module. And one of the things that is happening to this module is we're incorporating artificial intelligence into it so that it will know what to suggest for the customer. So if you use Netflix, I'm sure a lot of you guys watch Netflix. Netflix will try to tell you what you should watch next according to what you watched before. and give you a hit rate on that. This is like an 80% likely that you would like, and 90% likely you would like. We actually have developed the same concept for AutoGuide, saying, well, it's about 90% likely that this customer would want this type of seafood as well. So you can be upselling to the customer according to the AutoGuide. And this, of course, is different for types of companies. There might be some companies might not have that many products, so it doesn't really matter. Some companies will have lots of products, and they really would like to be able to cross-sell. So it works for that. I also go into restaurants that have fixed menus. If you sell seafood, because this is normally just buying the same thing and it would set up an order guide for them. So finally, I'm going to throw in here the available inventory. That's another module that we have. It just highlights how important it is to have everything broken out into lots. So here, this is basically called shop from the cooler. So you look up your cooler based on lots. You can see how much you have, where that location is, and any type of information. And as you're shopping out a cooler, you can be typing in quantities you want from each lot that you're going to be putting on the sales order. And the system is telling you if it has been taken or not. So another salesperson that put it on a sorter, so it's already taken, or not. And if you put that in here, then you have grabbed it. Highlighting again. But that was it that I could put into this webinar, but we have so much more to show. So if you guys would like further information, contact us in any way that you guys have set up for contacting.
Okay, thank you very much, Johannes. I thought it was very informative. I learned a lot about ERPs and about what you guys are working at INECTA. We could start taking some questions from the audience. If anyone out there would like to submit a question, please use the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we can handle those as they come in. I could start off. So, are most companies out there using some form of ERP right now, or is it still a process of old school seafood companies coming into the 21st century?
I would say that most people are using ERPs. I don't think there's a whole lot of people that are still doing either pen and paper or in Excel or something like that. I think they're using systems. However, I believe that a lot of companies have gone to systems that are sort of stuck, and that not a flexible enough system, might not do all of their processes, and they're kind of living with system plus Excel or something else on the outside, kind of band-aiding their situation. It's definitely, there's still a big leap for most companies to get into the modern ERP, I would say, and it takes a lot for companies to go there. Usually, they're busy doing their own business, so they would have to devote time into that too on day-to-day.
Yeah, and people fear change, is my experience. So.
Yeah.
It sounds like Microsoft is on the cutting edge of technology. Is that right? I mean, it seems like it's looking for a company that knows what it's doing and is continuously advancing knowledge and its capabilities for the end user. It's Microsoft. Is that your experience?
I mean, Microsoft got into the ERP business in about 1999 with just an acquisition for, I think it was Great Plains at the time, and they got Solomon after that, and then even Accept that came after. But it was more like a spec for them to actually have some offering in the ERP. But they were mostly an operating system and office package company. They made most of their money on that. Today has changed drastically. Operating systems are no longer out to survive into the future for the big technological giants. And with new CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, he bet the house on business software. And he was thinking not only ERP, but everything, like the Microsoft stack. And we, not being part of Microsoft, just went through it with him in the last 5 years. And just the amount of firepower that they have to build up these things is amazing. It's almost like standing out of Manhattan, seeing Manhattan build, in front of your eyes. It's kind of like that. Every day when we log in, we see things changing. We see new options. We see artificial intelligence come in. We see blockchain come in. Everything really fast. And so at this very moment, Microsoft is the front leader when it comes to business software and ERP, and we going forward. That's why they're doing so well in the stock market, for example.
Well, we got a stock tip in addition to an ERP tip, so that's good. That's a value in this webinar today. We're getting some good questions from our audience. One delves nicely from our previous comments, which is, so say you've got a traditional system, maybe one you want to transfer from into a more modern ERP system. How do you go about doing that? How does that transition work?
Sure. So if you probably have your processes sort of worked out in your traditional system today. Again, you might have some band-aids. But the way to do it is we have developed a lot of modules for the seafood industry, for processing of seafood or for seafood trading, etc. And what we would do is we would map out your business process within these modules in the Microsoft ERP and find if there are any gaps between what you do today and those modules. And this would be minimal because we have tried to encompass the space as much as possible. It works out for you. What we would do is the consultants to help your team get on speed with learning the system, moving the data over, setting time for when you want to go live, and maybe modifying the system a little bit to take care of those little things that might be very special to your business, because every business in the mid-market has special needs. And one of the beauties of this system is, even though we have the modules that things that seafood companies do, there might be this little extra, and that's easy to change within Business Central. And so we made it over, do these additions, and set a go live date. You go live, and off you go into the cloud if you want to be in the cloud.
Okay, another question that's a nice follow-up to that. So from a hypothetical. So, all right, you've convinced us we are a company that has not implemented an ERP. We currently handle most of our information in Excel. How fast is it possible to implement an ERP in its entirety, and why should we choose Microsoft?
Depends on processes you have. Let's say, for example, if you're like a seafood trader that buys and sells seafood, and you don't really have warehouse, you might just communicate with warehouses like 3PL. Then is not very complex. You should be able to get going if you don't have an existing ERP within, I'd say, a month. Or small, you could do it even less, but you of course have to understand the processes, etc. The part about being cloud is, like, if you have access to the system, all you have to do is go onto office.com to Dynamics 365 and start, and you're in. You think you have to email us and we have to turn it on, but that's pretty much it. And you're going, so with demo data. And then you need to upload your data from Excel. If you have it in Excel, that's really easy. There are routines within Business Central that allow you to upload straight from Excel into Business Central, like customer list, vendor list, item list, and going through the processes of buying, selling, testing all that out, making sure that works for your business, and training up your people. So you can fast. And why choose Microsoft? Because of all of this that I just explained. I think actually the single biggest point, other than Microsoft is betting the house on this, and it's a big house that they're betting, is this upgrade thing. No more upgrades. If you ever gone through an upgrade, you understand completely what I'm talking about. It's of a modified system have always been hard, and if that's not going to happen anymore, and you're going to have a customized system that will always be at the latest and the greatest, is an amazing statement. So Microsoft definitely has, at the moment, leads in that fashion.
Many more great questions coming in. There's a great question on blockchain that I'm going to get to before the end of the webinar, but a couple more following up on this conversation. Offline availability for the system. So to have a weak network connection or internet is down, can you still use all the functions of the system?
Yeah, so Business Central is available on-prem as well. And you can implement the system internally, basically not in the cloud. It's on a server, your server, and you can operate like that. And you can also have it connected to the cloud, synchronizes the data into the cloud. Have features that you would like to use in the cloud that are not maybe time sensitive. So you might be running your warehouse on-prem, which is time sensitive. Obviously, you have to be receiving, shipping, and sales, etc. But you might do your business intelligence in the cloud because that's not as time sensitive. You can have data replicated with intelligent edge in the cloud for use with business intelligence or other cloud-specific functions. So you can use sort of a hybrid model.
Okay. And how can the system handle multiple storage points within both your home country and overseas?
Storage points. If you do on-prem, then obviously your storage point is going to be wherever your server is. If you are completely cloud, you do not worry about storage. Microsoft takes care of the storage. There is no implementation of the database, storage, anything. All of the IT functions have been taken away like that. You have access, of course, to the data if you want to through web services, but and assured me, I actually had this question with them, and I said, okay, so what about tweaking the database to have it run really fast? Because we do that in many implementations. And they said, trust us, we know what we're doing. We know the SQL database very well, so it'll be fast. And far we haven't had any issue with that.
Question. The central ERP that you discussed, can that integrate into current ERPs set up for other industrial products and services?
Yeah, like let's say, for example, if you have two business units and you would like to have them talk, so like one company that does something and another company does something else. One company does processing and another one does trading, and you want to implement Business Central as the trading company. Excuse me, and I'm communicate with the processor. You can definitely, but you would have to do some kind of connection between the two, whether that's EDI or web services or something like that. You could definitely do that. But I would discourage trying to do, like, for example, accounting in one system and processing in another, or inventory management in one system and of the same company. I would try to, if I would just do everything in Business Central if it was the same company. It's more and cheaper.
Okay, blockchain question. So Microsoft is working on blockchain initiatives. Are there pilot sites for seafood industry blockchain case studies that have been working on implementing traceability through blockchain? I know there are some sustainability-related NGOs that are working with blockchain companies and startups, but is Microsoft involved? And how familiar are you with Microsoft's efforts to use blockchain?
So here's the Microsoft stand on almost everything is will be the platform. You decide what you want to then do with it. And so from a Microsoft standpoint, what they did in the Azure cloud, on the Microsoft stack, is that provided a blockchain development studio, which we have, as a partner, Inecta, we have actually gone in there and built a blockchain which we could use, or anyone could use, through that studio, and it's hosted by Microsoft. So the blockchain is on the Azure and can be accessed by anyone. So we know how to connect to the blockchain. We know how to register with the blockchain. We know how to create a blockchain. All of that. Now the question becomes, who create the blockchain that everybody will use? And this is something that's happening right now. It's kind of a battle of whether that will be a neutral organization. I know that Walmart has their own blockchain, and they're setting up these requirements saying now you have to report to the blockchain by this date. I mean, but we all know about Walmart's efforts in traceability, etc. So who knows how that'll go? But we definitely have a world full of blockchains where people are reporting to blockchains for different reasons. And for you as a company, you need to be ready for that. If you're a very large company, you might actually set the standard, but it will be reporting. So you might, for example, be the first one to get into Whole Foods because you are blockchain ready, and one of your competitors might then not get the deal because they're not. So we see this scenario being very similar to EDI.
This has been a great discussion. We're getting near our time limit. There are several other questions. I highly recommend you reach out to Johannes. His email is on the screen right now. And I know Pablo wanted to know if maybe you could handle some of his questions in Spanish. So you can reach out to him or through the sales@Inecta email address on the screen. And I'm glad that we had a great discussion here. I'm going to wrap things up. Today, I've been listening to the webinar, Mastering Chaos, How ERP Systems Can Improve Supply Chain Management in the Seafood Industry, presented by Johannes Gudmundsson, the CEO and founder of Inecta LLC. If you'd like to continue this conversation, you can reach out to them. And this webinar was brought to you by seafoodsource.com. We bring you the best views from the global seafood industry, analysis, insights, and educational resources. And we also offer pre-memberships that offer even more of all the things. To sign up for a pre-membership, you can go to seafoodsource.com/join. Thanks so much for joining us, and take care, everyone.